Doing today? Welcome to my photography live stream where we talk about photography, catch up with the community, see how everybody's doing. I'm doing fine, thanks, and I hope all of you are doing well on this beautiful Sunday here in Maryland, Northern Virginia, DC metro area. Whatever you want to call it, we call it all kinds of things here. But yeah, I'm sorry, I started a little late today. I went out with David Crooks this morning to a drifting or motorsports racetrack. And I posted a bunch of pictures on my Instagram and my Flickr. So I'll show you a couple that I did today. And I shot with my you can see the memory card still open. I just got home like I guess 2 hours ago. I don't know. Anyway, and I've been kind of editing and posting. But yeah, this is a very, very capable sports camera. And I shot with my OM3 and 35 to 100 f2.8. I could easily shot with like the 40 to 150 uh kit lens, but I have this one is a little better. So I thought I'd go with this because I wanted to use my ND filter, and I'm going to try and do a review on this week. But it's a combination ND and polarizer. And this really made a difference, and I'll point out a couple of the things that you can see the difference that this makes. But it's pretty awesome. So I see a lot of people here already. Good to see you, Marcia and Steve and Tim and let's see, Gigi Wildlife. Very good to see you, and Dave Asher. Good to see you, new member of the channel. Thank you so much for your support. I do have memberships on my channel now for like 99 cents. Just because a lot of people asked me to add that to my channel because I wanted to show their support, and I really appreciate that. And of course, I have all my donation links, coffee, all that. But uh, however you decide to support the channel, just watching, subscribing, click the like button. All of it's very, very much appreciated. So I'm a little exhausted because I've been kind of pissing around since 4 a.m. this morning to go out. We had to drive. For me, it was a couple-hour drive. Oops, excuse me. To get out there and then a couple hours back, and we spent a couple hours there. So it's a lot of overhead just to get a few images together. But it was my first time doing that kind of photography, motorsports. And Dave gave me a couple of good tips to shoot it like 1/250th of a second. And then whatever the other settings are going to be, they are. I shot in shutter priority. I let the camera handle the aperture and ISO. But it was a pretty bright day, so most of it was okay. I have all the EXIF data in Instagram if you look there. And if you sign into Flickr, you can see the EXIF data in the Flickr and also the full resolution images. And just very, very minor editing to get those out quickly as I can. Excuse me. And X-Meta, you're right. The 12 to 100 would have been a better lens to take. I found that 35 was a bit too tight sometimes because we were able to get right up to the track. And at first, it was a little scary for me. I was like, man, these cars are just sliding everywhere. They got no grip. And, uh, what's to stop them from just crashing over the wall, and I'm not paying attention. So they make you sign all these waivers. But what's really cool, and it was a great tip, was to uh, sign in as a media person. So you get access to certain areas of the track that the normal uh, uh, you know spectators would not. And not that they were really enforcing much anyway, but they gave me this blue band. Gotta cut this off. I feel like I'm going to the hospital. Oh, anyhow, so that was that. And but yeah, I didn't find the buffer. The buffer is at 85, so it's not as big as the OM1 that I'm used to shooting with, the at 93, but it's not Not that much difference, right? And it's certainly not the OM1 Mark II, which has like I think a 200 frame buffer. I'm not sure, but anyhow, I see Shri is here, and oh hey David, how are you? I see David kind of stepped in, and let me check in here. Any questions? And also, I always like the audience, to drive the conversation. So if you have any questions, photography related, I'll do my best to answer them. Right now the hot thing going is the OM3, which I love to death. Uh, and I'll just mention very quickly, the handling is just fine, even with a big honking lens, relatively speaking, like this one. Because you're always holding it with your left hand, zooming in and out, and all my right hand has to do is push the button, right? And I also recorded some video. Maybe I can show you the raw footage. I was trying different settings like slow motion, the S and Q mode, and regular cinema 4K, stuff like that. So that was I'm not really a video person, so that's where I kind of struggled the most with. But, I used the car subject detect and the autofocus, and it's fabulous. And, my initial shots there was some autofocus because I've never shot this kind of thing. No matter how much work the camera can do for you with all this technology, right? Ultimately, your skill set and is going to win the day and get the best shots, right? So, and skill set not only includes knowing your camera and settings and how it behaves with different lenses, because I wasn't sure how this lens would work with the OM3, being that it's not native. It's a Panasonic. I mean, it's a native Micro Four Thirds, but it's not a native lens for OM systems. And it was fine. It was fine. I'm not sure I got all the settings right, but I did get a few keepers out of like 5,000 images. So I got a lot of pruning to do. Most of the shots were just, kind of boring, the car coming over the hill kind of thing. But uh, I'll show you just a couple. Move this over here, and then I'll get into the chat and answer any questions you might have. All the way over here. And I'm just going to open my Flickr page. So, yeah, I posted a few here. This is a Mustang, and this was at so I found at 1/250th of a second, I was getting a lot of blurry images, like motion blur. So I bumped it to 1/500th of a second, and the camera chose f4 at ISO 250. And again, I was using a polarizer with variable ND filter. But when you use a polarizer, what's really nice is if you punch in, you can see right through the glass. There's no reflections. You get a lot better contrast in the scene overall. You can see the driver here very clearly through the front windshield. So the polarizer adds, the contrast and the ability to see through reflections or cut the reflections down, and also allowed me to keep my aperture low, wide open as possible, so I could blur out the background a little bit. Uh, as whenever it decided to use the smaller apertures, which would be as low as 2.8. Um, then here's another Mustang that I did. This one is at 1/250th f5.6 ISO 320. So this scene was a little bit dark. Maybe I didn't have my ND filter adjusted right because it's a variable ND. But the shot still came out okay. I can see the front is pretty tack sharp, but then towards the back, there's a little bit of motion blur here. And that's kind of what pushed me to bump the ISO up a little bit, because I thought I could maybe get some panning motion and get this, show the road and the trees and everything blurred out. But that's where my skill set is not quite there yet. I can't pan at slower shutter speeds and still get a sharp image. So I need to practice a bit more. So this was my first time trying this. This shot was at 1/500 f4. So I think these came out pretty good. Here we're at 1/500 f4, ISO 200. And the other thing I wanted to do is use a slow enough shutter speed so that the wheels would look blurry, right? Like a propeller on a plane. But again, I need to practice a bit more of panning at slower shutter speeds because I was really hurting. And then I think this is my favorite shot because it's the most colorful car on the street, and the one that's not all beat up. Like, it's not, it hasn't been wrecked like 100 times like these other cars. But yeah, this is a cool shot. And this car was created the most smoke and was really loud. So you could hear it coming. I guess it's got this blower on top here. What is this? This looks like a Toyota G or something 86. Anyway, I'm not really that into cars, but you can punch in and see all of the detail here. I think this came out really. This is probably my favorite. It was the sharpest, cleanest car, and lots of smoke. So, and this one was at 1/500 ISO 200 f2.8. And I was at 59 millimeters. So I was zooming in and out a lot. And that was one of the challenges was I'm not sure how well the camera was autofocusing while I was zooming. I'm going to go back and look at all my shots and try and get a feel for that. Uh, it's hard to do after the fact. I have to do it while I'm in the field because I'm not going to be able to remember if I was zooming in and out while I was taking pictures after the fact. I mean, I can tell by the focal length changing on the same vehicle. But a lot of times what I ended up doing towards the end of the session, what I started doing was, getting a shot of the car coming in, letting go of the shutter button, zooming in or zooming out as needed to get another frame or composition, and then, bursting again. And I was only bursting at 12 and a half frames per second. You don't really need 25, 50 frames per second for this kind of sport, it seems. Yeah, and then I would zoom back in or out and burst again. And that seemed to work the best. And this was one of the last shots that I got during the event. So this was kind of early on. This was early on. This shot is interesting because if you look in the back, there's this drone following the car. So a lot of the cars, they had drones following them, like perfectly in sync. So I don't know. I guess the track that hosts these events is doing this because I can't imagine they would let the drivers have their own drones. But that was really cool how they were tracking these cars with the drones. They were just following them around. But a lot of the cars there today were like this. They were beat up one way or the other. So, but it was cool. I don't know if I got any more. Oh, that's from before. I think I talked about this the other day in my other stream. I'll come back to this a little later. There's a couple of interesting points I want to make about these shots as well. But okay, I will now return to the chat window and let's see. Oh, John follows us here. Good to see you. And David's calling 3,260 shots from this morning. So you didn't take quite as many because you've done this a few times. So you probably weren't, uh, you know, testing shots as much as I was because I was testing a lot of different uh, ways of zooming and bursting and following the cars. Like I said, it was a really exciting for me because it was new, and that's what I love about photography. Is always something new. Let's see, and I see Shri came in. Good to see you, and ATR Bear. And yeah, I'm definitely using the OM3. This camera is basically my everyday camera now, because it does everything in a retro body. It's so cool. So I just love the retro look. It inspires me to take the camera out, that one in particular. And and then it's extremely capable as the OM1 Mark II and probably not, all the ways that would matter to me. I don't need a 200 buffer. I don't really need dual card slots for, the shots that I would take with this. For my paid jobs, I take my OM1, which has the dual card slots and all the stuff. But John says, it takes me back to motorsports photography in 1970 when I published an Autosport and Motoring News in the UK with a Canon. Oh, wow. Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, a lot of you guys have so much more experience than I do. I'm always very flattered by, you know, the fact that you guys watch and support everything I do here. It's really appreciated. And question, my Nikon D600 misses focus a lot even after fine-tuning calibration. Any tips to get sharp focus on a Nikon DSLR with moving objects aside from faster shutter speed? Okay. Again, this is about getting a feel for the camera and lenses and combinations and how they work. Because you have to calibrate every lens separately, I believe, if you're going to do this fine-tuning calibration. It's been a while since I've thought about Nikon DSLRs. The only thing I do remember was, and shutter speed obviously is important, which, you're aware of here. But, the when I want to go back to basic techniques of making sure, because the D600 doesn't have IBIS, right? So you have to get basic technique of holding the camera with the left hand, using your right hand to guide, using the EVF against your forehead to get 3 points of contact between your elbows tucked in. So that's a big one. Or just use a tripod, right? And then also, I remember my Sigma lenses, the Sigma art lenses. I had 3 of them, the 24 to 105, the 50, 1.4, and I had the 18 to 35 went for my crop sensor DSLRs, the D7100. And yeah, I found those miss focus a lot, even though I got that confirmation beep. So try to use native Nikon glass. They were much more reliable. So if you're missing focus a lot with the Sigma lenses, that's the experience that I had. I mean, it wasn't a lot, but it wasn't 100% reliable, that's for sure. Because I would get back and I would see the images were misfocused. And I remember one day I went out and I was like, okay, I'm going to make sure I get the confirmation beep on a specific target and take a few photos this way, then do another target, do another subject. And I came back and yeah, there was a lot of misfocus points even when I was in the field and deliberately trying to make sure that the camera was acquiring focus. So if that, I don't know if you're using Sigma lenses or not, but I do know when I was using my Nikon uh, glass, I was not having as many missed focus shots. So those are the main things, right? And also make sure you can, if you're going to be using faster shutter speeds, watch your ISO. A lot of times when the ISO is higher, the images aren't as sharp because of the noise, right? So that could also be perceived as out of focus. I mean, I'm kind of stretching here a little bit, but those are the things. Other than that, I don't have really much else I can add other than, good contact, 3-point contact for stability, using fast enough shutter speed, as you know, and use Nikon native glass because the Sigma glass did miss focus quite often for me. And then Tim Adams is asking, just curious, any thoughts about the Sigma BF? Worst name ever. Really neat camera. I think uh, maybe in a year or so, I'll get one because I just love the design. It's not practical at all. There's no shutter, there's no flash, there's no memory card, no IBIS, no EVF, no articulating screen. Like it's just missing so many things. Basically, it's a sensor with a shutter button on it, right? The menu system is, the way the buttons work, from what I've seen, look rudimentary. So, uh, all that aside, I think it's a beautiful camera, very unique, and I'm sort of a collector now. I just love cameras. And I decided middle of last year that if it's within my reach financially and I like the camera, I'm just gonna get it. I just don't life is short, and I don't want to regret uh have any regrets. I want to just be happy and enjoy the gear. I'm a big gear hog. Uh Nice way to say is I'm a collector, but I just love gear and what it's capable of doing, all the technology that goes into it, and the thought and design process of the designers and engineers and their final creation of whatever machine or device that they make. And just it I just find it, I just really enjoy it for the gear. And on the photography, and of course photography, I'm happy with just about any camera when it comes to doing photography and capturing images and moments, and every camera kind of offers, at least for me, because I try to be hyper aware of what the camera design and intent of the camera was, what it was designed for, and use it to its what it's best at, right? And enjoy what the engineer and intent of that piece of gear is for. And so so for example, an extreme example would be like the Pentax monochrome camera that I have. I love shooting black and white, and the fact that this is a monochrome camera, I just love the images that I get from it. And you know, it can be argued that in a blind test, you really can't tell the difference. Once it's been post-processed between a monochrome camera and an RGB camera, like a color camera, and converting it to monochrome and using like silver effects or whatever post-processing software you have, that you can't get awesome black and white images no matter what camera you're using. But I enjoy the fact that this Pentax is a dedicated monochrome, that I have to look at things in color, right? Because I'm shooting through optical viewfinder and capture things in black and white. So I enjoy that process of seeing things in color and trying to imagine what it's going to look like in black and white. Uh, and so that's what I mean by I like to use the cameras for their intent and enjoy the camera in a way that it was meant to be used. And the Pentax monochrome is a good example of that. Then lesser examples would be, say, like the Fuji XH2 that I have. It has the film simulations, which, I'm not I enjoy post-processing more so than getting certain colors, color signs from a camera. But I do appreciate the effort that they put in, and it's really interesting how they put these formulas together to create these film simulations that they have. Just like the OM3 and the Pen F, they have their sort of their own film simulations or color profiles and art filters, and I just love all of that stuff. And uh, so going back to the Sigma BF, this is a camera that is a minimalist camera, basically a sensor with a shutter button, right? And I find that really fascinating. Throw on a nice little pancake lens on there, and it would be a very, very different experience to try to do photography with that kind of gear, right? And the way they built it out of a solid piece, like a CNC machined body, I find really fascinating. So I think Sigma did an awesome job Unfortunately, I don't think it's gonna do well. It's gonna be sort of like a collector's only thing, and, you know, the only people that are gonna buy that are people like me that find it fascinating, you know? I can't imagine, like, uh, any beginning photographer would pick that as their first camera, right? I mean, it just doesn't make sense because it's very, very limiting, uh, to what you can do with it. Specifically, you can't do any flash photography. You don't have a mechanical shutter, and you're gonna have rolling shutter issues, banding. You're gonna have a lot of problems that you cannot work around in post processing, right? These are limitations of the camera that are sort of its calling card, but also you know it's going to be its downfall ultimately. So they'll probably just do a limited production of it. A lot of cameras I feel like is kind of this was done a lot more when the camera market was a lot stronger and everybody was buying cameras, where camera companies could experiment and throw things out there that were unique. And I really miss that in the camera industry, is these very unique one-off type cameras that are very difficult to find, like Olympus's Ferrari point and shoot. It was so campy. You turn the camera on, it makes the engine sound from a Ferrari. It came in this bright red, Ferrari red cladding, and this really nice box. It's all about presentation and gimmicks, but that's definitely a camera I wanna get one. I'm so jealous. Peter Forsgard has one. Next time if he live streams, or, you get a chance to, communicate with him, ask him to do a video on that camera if he hasn't already. It's such a cool camera. So, that's where I feel about the BF is it's like a collector camera. It's not really a camera that I think anyone but somebody that's hardcore enthusiast and loves gear and appreciates the design and engineering in a particular piece of equipment is going to buy. And I'll be one of them, but I think if the market, I feel like the market's not going to buy into it, and the price is going to come down on the used market. And that's when I'll get one, when it's like half, what it was when it came out. So if it gets down to like $1,000, I think it's an easy decision for me to get it. With the qualifications I mentioned, that it's not because it's a particularly capable camera. It's just a very unique camera. Okay, good question. Let's see. And X-Meta said, would love to get these 10 to 25, 25 to 51 point zooms for low light, but they are too expensive at 2,000. Wow. Yeah, those are big honking lenses, though. I don't have a use case for that. Uh, I don't do a lot of low light photography, and if I do, it's like I just crank the ISO up. I don't care about the noise, and it's not because I use DxO to denoise it. It's just that uh, the images, it forces me to focus on the composition and find the light, uh, and deal with the challenge of working in low light without having a fast lens. Now, if you're particularly in videography, if you need low light capability because and you're doing things professionally, or you're a hardcore enthusiast, these lenses make a lot of sense. But I'm not a hardcore enthusiast in that sense, where I'm trying to maximize my low light capability. That's not a priority for me in my photography, at least not now. Maybe one day it will be, where I'll be like, I love doing low light photography, and I want to get the fastest lens I can and capture images that would not be possible otherwise with the gear that I have now. But I'm just not there yet. And oh, hi, Jock, Jock, Jock is Snell. I hope I pronounced that right, but thank you. Thank you. Good to have you here. And let's see. And Brian James is here. Hey buddy, how you doing? From Cyprus on your first week of immigration, even though I'll be back in the UK very soon. I'm sure they miss you over there, Brian. Don't forget to smash a like. Thanks. I appreciate that. And Dave Asher, I'm sorry. I try not to miss any questions, but my chat window just goes up and down on its own sometimes. Rob, with the OM3, if you could only have two lenses, one zoom, one prime for each of the following landscape, birding, and street, what would they be? Okay, so we're talking about 6 lenses, right? Well, if it's going to be 2 lenses for all of those, uh, I would say my prime would be most likely the 25 1.4 from Panasonic. I just love that lens. Uh, how it renders, and of course, having the low light capability never hurts, but I mostly like it because I can keep my shutter speeds up and get that shallow depth of field when I want it with that prime. And then for the zoom, uh, that's a tough call. I think the zoom would probably be if I got to do birding, not a lens that I own, but it'd probably be the 100 to 400, the Olympus 100 to 400, the Mark One, because then I could do. I'd have the 25 prime for my normal everyday stuff, and then a zoom to do landscape birding, and the 25 could do street. If I had to go down to 2 lenses, that would be it. Uh, 'Cause the 25 1.4 is a relatively small lens, right? So I won't mind carrying it around for everyday stuff to do street and landscape to some extent. I can do panos with it, like stitching 9 or 10 images together. And then for birding and landscape, the 100 to 400 is a really good range for that. Those would be the 2, but I don't own the 100 to 400. Now, if you want to talk about 2 lenses for each genre, that's a whole different story. Uh, I'd say for landscape, it would probably be still that same combination, 25 prime and 100 to 400. For birding, it would be a 300 millimeter prime and a 75 to 300. If I was only going to do birding, it would be those 2 lenses. So I would take the 75 to 300 when I don't want to carry the heavier lens, or if I know I'm going to be in a situation where I need to zoom in and out, and 300 is going to be too tight for a lot of things. So typically, like bird on a stick, sometimes you can get pretty close, and it's better to get closer than to zoom in, right? Uh, and then if it was street only, easy, 12 to 40 f 2.8 Pro. That would be my zoom for street. And then for prime, I'd probably stick with the 25 1.4. I might substitute actually the 15 millimeter 1.7 from Panasonic, the 15 or 17, you know, that focal length, 15 or 17. But I'm leaning towards the 15. I like that little bit wider field of view because I like to do uh, architectural type photography when I'm doing street photography, where I'm including as much of the environment as possible and trying to compose all of those elements together. But yeah, that's that's where I'd go on those two. I mean, the 100 to 400, I don't own that lens because I use the 75 to 300 most of the time instead of the 100 to 400. But when I need 400 millimeters, I actually use my 300 millimeter prime with a 1.4 tele converter, and I'm set because there's no substitute for that 300 millimeter f4. That lens is super sharp, super fast autofocusing. amazing image stabilization, uh, and that is the prime, and that's why I don't have the 100 to 400 because uh, I have a lot of other choices. I have so many lenses now that the 100 to 400 probably would not get used that much. But if you're going to narrow me down to two, that would be probably one of my top picks. When in doubt, how about focusing on a spot the moving object will go by and just time the shot? Use high shutter speed focused on that spot. You could. I mean, I was being a little lazy using the card subject detect in the camera because it works. It works great. But the problem is, I was so close to the vehicles, the distance that the car was coming to and from me required continuously autofocusing on the car itself. What you're talking about is capturing one moment, right? When it goes over that spot. That that would be pretty limiting because in this case, the cars, they didn't all spin out or drift in at the same point. Some of them would drift and you would get a lot of smoke in the tires and everything 50 feet or 60 feet away from where the previous car did. So continuous autofocus is kind of a must. Now, if I didn't have the luxury of continuous autofocus, then what you're talking about makes a lot of sense. And then I would probably use a deeper depth of field like f8 instead of the 2.8 and f4 that I was shooting at a lot. And oops, that should have been the area on the same plane, but not on the moving object, as in ahead of, yeah. So I understood what you meant. Focusing on a particular point or focal plane. If we were in single autofocus, that would be the way to do it. But it'd be kind of a crapshoot if the car was generating smoke in the tires at that point. You just don't know. Uh, but I'm sure a more experienced like photographer like John Follows would be able to handle that no problem, right? Um, without the benefit of car subject detect, a skilled photographer will always get the better shot. Doesn't matter what technology I might be able to take advantage of, you know. Now, the one thing that, these kind of technologies, this AI, quote unquote, autofocus does is it does uh, give you a much higher chance of capturing the image if you don't have that skill set, right? But ultimately, to get the best shot, you need that skill set, and the subject detect and all of that AI focusing becomes less relevant because you're going to know exactly when to capture the shot. You know, like wildlife, for example, you might wait there for hours to capture that one moment when it does what you want it to do to get that image. Same thing with street photography, whatever. I mean, I'm exaggerating a little maybe, but uh, all Sigma has to do is have someone in TikTok to show off the BF. It'll be a trendy, yeah, probably. And Lauren says, I have the Kodak Brownie Holiday Flash Camera, very basic. I took photos with that one when I was around 10 years old. Good old black and white and zero controls on it. I know, right? So the Sigma BF is sort of the modern version of that. Is that what you're implying? It's not too far off, is it? And thanks. My thoughts exactly on the Sigma BF. Yeah. So we're on. I don't think anybody, even Sigma, has any illusion about what that camera is. Right? It's not. It's not like a super high end capable camera in terms of feature set and capability. It's more of a collector piece, right? And the Sigma BF only has a wrist strap connector. Wonder why they do that. Probably for the aesthetics. It would kind of look odd if it had a couple of protrusions for, uh, a couple of lugs on it, like we have on, the every other camera, right? It would it would be a smudge, not a smudge, but it would be it would just stick out, and it would mess up the design or aesthetic of the camera, because that camera is all about the aesthetics. It's very, very, very little form. It's mostly or very little function. It's mostly form, right? And Eric says, "Sorry, late to view. So you got your oh yeah, I did. I did. I can talk about that a little bit if you want. And oh, I forgot about car detect. Seriously, David, you didn't use car detect today? Can't believe it. You've been to that event so many times, probably, and with your own one, I'm sure. How could you forget about car detect? Um, let's see. Think I missed any chat. Okay. Oh, hey Marco, how are you? Yeah, I'm here. How you doing? So Marco's another one that's commented on my Deluxe 8. So right here. Okay, so yeah, I sold I sold a bunch of stuff. I didn't actually pay that much for this. I mean, ultimately it still cost me the $1,600 because the stuff that I traded in wasn't worth zero to me, right? It was worth whatever it was I got for it. Um, but this camera, basically it's the same as my LX100 Mark II. It doesn't really feel, or the images are indistinguishable in terms of image quality, color. The black and whites are everything is exactly the same. The autofocus performance, I'm not seeing any significant difference there, though I haven't measured and done metrics for it. But basically, they took the LX100 Mark II and Leicified it. So the key upgrades here, uh, from a technical point, is the EVF is now OLED. Um, the menu system is so nice. Leica has the best menu system I've ever seen. They stripped a lot of things out, but I don't really miss them. I never used them in the LX100 Mark II, even though they're there. They simplified a lot of things. They got rid of a lot of buttons, and the Wi-Fi is much faster, so I can offload images to the app. I don't do that in real life, but I tried it and it was fast. So for people that want to offload their images and share them immediately on their whatever social media, it's much, much faster with this camera. There are better ways to do it. I mean, if you get like an SD card reader and plug it into your phone, that's faster, honestly. But in any case, if you want to do it via the app, you can do that. And there was one other thing. So it's EVF, menu, Wi-Fi. I can't think of the other thing. But you know, let me. I mean, look at this touch screen. This interface is gorgeous. I know it's basically a super control panel, but it somehow Leica has nailed it when it comes to the menu system. And when you want to deep dive into the menu, it's just you just push this, goes into the super control panel, push it again, it goes into the menu, and then I can toggle page to page, uh, using the zoom lever. Well, anyway, it's hard to do it backwards and on the live stream, but yeah, this is amazing. Uh, I and of course, aesthetically, I think it's beautiful. It looks just like their Leica Q series, but just kind of a miniature. I ordered a half case with a little bit of a grip here, uh, because my LX100, I have a half case with a little bit of a grip, and it makes a difference in holding the camera and how it feels in the hand. This feels very similar to the OM3. It's just lighter, right? It's like 100 grams lighter. depending on the lens. But yeah, this is amazing, terrific little camera. And if you don't care about the looks, oh, the EVF honestly didn't bother me on the LX100 Mark II. I can see what people are talking about because when you shake the camera a little bit, you start to see the tearing effect in the EVF on the other camera. But it never bothered me at all, and I find the EVF pretty much the same between the two for me. And whatchamacallit, but the overall experience using the interface, having fewer buttons and less things to navigate through in the menu just makes it a much more fluid photographer's experience. You're out there to take photos with it and not fiddle with all the different technology like the LX102 has recapture and focus stacking and just to name a couple things, right? Has a lot of other things. Has different ways to do dynamic range, has all of these art filters, and has different color profiles, and it's just so much stuff in there. And basically, like I slashed all that in half and said, okay, color, black and white. And then, uh, uh, so there's like three color modes and two black and white modes. That's it. And then there's a couple autofocusing modes, right? Single, continuous, and tracking. It's very, very simple. So it's pretty sweet. It's pretty sweet. I'm pretty happy. I'm happy with both cameras. So it makes no sense to keep the LX100 Mark II at this point. Even though it technically I think is the better camera because of all of the technology and features that you have access to that the sensor is capable of in the processor, but at the same time, I didn't use any of that stuff. If I want to use that kind of stuff, Olympus, the newer OM system cameras do it better. If I want to do those kind of things, high-res shot mode, in-camera stacking, all the different focusing modes, all of that technology is better in my OM3, better even in my OM1 and OM5 or EM5 Mark III. These things are all better in the OM systems cameras, but the LX100 Mark II is really a very capable camera, and when I took side-by-side images, I could not see any difference in color, clarity, all of that stuff, right? It's not that big. It's really not that big. Uh, I don't have a GR3 or anything to put next to it, which would be a direct competitor to this because that's also a very simplified system, right? Couple of buttons, a shutter button, and a single lens. This one has a zoom lens, which I like. That's why I never bothered with the GR3 because no EVF and no zoom lens. I like the zoom lens. I don't care about the aspect ratio thing that this has. I would just rather crop it later. I mean, I get it. I get it why people like to just shoot one by one if they want to. But I I don't mind because a lot of times I don't frame it perfectly or it's not quite level and I'd like to be able to correct it without losing anything in the composition. So, but it's small. Make it a Leica Q3. I'm thinking about it. Problem with the Q3 is it has a fixed 28 millimeter. I'm not into this fixed focal length thing. I much prefer to have a zoom. And Marco says, I'm thinking of parting with the LX102 and EM104 and trying to score a D-Lux 8. You're giving me the itch. Well, I'll tell you what, if you get the Leica D-Lux 8, you're not going to miss those two cameras. Okay? Uh, the Leica D-Lux 8 can easily replace those two. Given I know you already have the OM1 Mark II and other very capable cameras, these two cameras are easily replaced by this LX100, I'm sorry, by this Deluxe 8, no problem for your use case, right? And where you're at. One thing I will tell you is never ever sell your EM1 Mark 1 silver. Don't ever sell that. That is an awesome camera. Okay, wonder if there's going to be a GR4. That's a good question. I wouldn't be surprised if they come out with one, but I'm not familiar enough with the GR series to get a feel for what would they do better, right? Um, if they do come out with a GR4, what could they possibly do? Because the camera is already doing exactly what it's supposed to do, and it does it very well. Can they improve the autofocus? Maybe. You know what I mean? It would just be one of those things. Can they give it a more resolution? What is it now? 24 megapixels? I don't even know. What would they do to improve it? I don't see any way they can improve the GR3 because it has IBIS, it has the, good sensor, excellent lens, fixed focal length. If they come out with a GR4, the only thing I would say is make it a zoom lens. Even if it's not much, like maybe a 25 to 50 equivalent, just a 2x zoom. It doesn't have to have a huge range. I mean, this is only a 3x zoom, right? It's a 24 to 75. More than enough. More than enough. Uh, I think a 2x zoom GR4 would be pretty awesome. But I don't know. You guys let me know what you think the GR4 would do better if they make one. I can't think of anything. I mean, let's not get into, we're going to get better low light performance. We're going to get, all these technical specs that are related to the sensor are just kind of irrelevant until there's a, you know, paradigm shift or what, I don't know what word I'm looking for. But like the Sony A1, whichever one it was, I think, that has the global shutter, that's new. That's different. Uh, the Nikon Z6 III with its semi-stacked sensor, that's kind of different, right? But ultimately, do these sensors produce lower noise given the format that they're competing with? Not really. Do they give better dynamic range? Not really. So if we're going to put an APS-C sensor into a GR4, how can they make that better? Make it stacked? I don't know. Maybe it's stacked now, but I don't think it is. Maybe give it a stacked sensor, but is that going to improve the intent of what that camera's for? Because really, you only need a stacked sensor when you're doing high-speed continuous shutter and panning. You don't want that rolling shutter effect. But a GR3, GR4, these are street cameras where you're just popping things off, very quickly. Hence, you have the pre-focus distance or whatever kind of build snap focus they call it. You have that, and uh, so I think for what that camera is designed for, what could they do to improve it? I'm curious what you guys think. I can't think of anything other than maybe putting a 2x zoom in it because it is really a pain in the butt. Everybody's buying two GRs. They're buying the 40 millimeter and the 28 millimeter, whatever those two focal lengths are. Just make it a 24 to 50 f2.8 or whatever it needs to be. Make it a 1.8 to 2.8. Make it a variable zoom to keep it compact. And then if you can give it a little more bit depth or a little more dynamic range, improve the sensor a little, fine. But it's not going to be significant, whatever they do. It just can't be until there's a big shift or big jump or leap in sensor technology. We've peaked. Yeah, we can tweak and squeeze out a little more every year. But, when I take out my 10 or 12, 15-year-old camera and take a picture, it's not that much different than the most modern cameras I have. You really only see the differences when you start pushing them to their limits, shooting at high ISO, shooting it underexposed by 4 stops and raising the things like that. Yeah, okay, there's been some nice improvements, but most of that is in the analog digital converter. The sensor itself is still just a piece of silicon with a certain amount of sensitivity and wires on it. that are not really wires, they're kind of etched in, right? So they make improvements in, the micro lenses, but ultimately we're talking about CMOS, right? What's that called? Carbon metal oxide semiconductor, whatever that stands for. They're all CMOS sensors, right? I'm not saying there aren't different grades of CMOS, and there hasn't been refinements in purifying the the platters that they use to cut out and etch out all the sensors. But you guys know what I'm talking about. There's so many videos out there. How many videos? I think Tony just had one. How ironic, guy. Anyway, they take a picture with a 10-year-old camera and compare it to like a modern camera, Hasselblad even. You know what I mean? And it's like, can you tell the difference between these two pictures? Which one was taken by this, 2009 camera and this 2025 camera? It's kind of a loaded question, right? Well, maybe you can't tell the difference because the lighting is good and all of that, right? And everything was optimized for each camera conditions. Because one camera is going to do well in a much wider range of conditions. The older camera is going to need ideal conditions. So what they do is they shoot the old camera under the most ideal conditions to get the very best image you can out of this old sensor. And then they do the same thing on the new sensor. And of course, it's going to look the same, right? But let's say you take the old sensor and you put it in not so ideal conditions, like underexposed by 4 stops. And then you take the new camera from 2025 and shoot it underexposed 2 stops. Now post-process, edit these and see if you can tell the difference. Absolutely. You're going to see a difference between this old camera and this new camera, because new cameras are much better in that respect of pushing and pulling. They have more bit depth. Maybe there's a more refined process of the CMOS, the silicon that they use, the wiring, the analog digital converters, all the technology that goes along with that. And that's why it's so interesting to me when they use old sensors, right? Because how long did Olympus and OM Systems use the 16 and 20 megapixel sensors, and Panasonic? They used those for years and years and years. All they did was update everything around it, right? The analog digital converter and the processing in the raw, and the circuit board itself generates noise and heat and all of that. It made a lot of improvements around the sensor itself so that ultimately, yeah, you're getting better results, but it's not because the sensor is really any better. It's mostly because of everything around driving that sensor. Uh, and, maybe on top of the sensor, the micro lenses and the processing of Lightroom and whatever other raw converters that you use are much better at demosaicing the raw data. Like DxO, I think, is the best at demosaicing the raw data and giving you the best image quality, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. Just tuning in to say hi. Can't stay. We'll watch later. Oh, okay. Awesome. So yeah, it's come to my attention, and I mentioned this in my photo editing stream, that when my streams are over, you guys are inundated with an ad. If you're watching this after, every like 2 minutes, sometimes 30 seconds, there'll be another ad. Every 2 to 3 minutes, basically. That's ridiculous. When you're trying to watch a 2 or 3 hour stream, now all of a sudden it takes 6 hours to watch it because there's 2 hours of ads on top of the 2 hour stream. So what I've been doing is I'll wait about an hour after the stream is over, and then I'll go in and I'll just delete like most of the ads so that you're only getting an ad every 10 to 15 minutes instead of every 2 to 3 minutes. So there's still going to be ads. And I've been debating turning the ads off altogether for members only, right? So uh, I'm debating doing that, but probably all I'll end up doing is just deleting the ads that are in the replay. Because that, my God, I'd put a gun to my head if I had to watch a 2 hour video and then there's 2 hours of ads to go with it. That's just It's like YouTube wants you to subscribe to their channel service so you don't have to watch the ads. You know, 'cause it would tempt me if I every time I watched a video and there was an ad every 2 minutes, I would have subscribed years ago because I ain't sitting through that. Even for a 10-minute video, if you gotta sit through an ad every 2 minutes, that's too much. But let's put a silver lining on this, okay? If they're dumping my videos with a bunch of ads, that means that my channel is semi-popular, that advertisers, that my video qualifies, that my content qualifies for all of this advertising. I can look at it that way. But thanks for dropping in, Dr. Matthew Grant. Thank you. And Shree says, my 4150 2.8 cap came off. It's a mess. Hopefully 100 to 400 Canon ET78 2 cap fits. Yeah, if you're talking about the lens cap, you're talking about the lens hood, I don't know. But you can find a lens cap. Just look at the ring size. Uh, Whatever that is, it's probably a 72. But you must be talking about the lens hood. It is yeah, it's a 7. No, wait. That's the diameter. Ah, it's on sale now for $11.99. That's a good deal, given prices today. Oh, it is a 72 millimeter. Lucky guess. 72 millimeter ring. And the GX9 plus a Leica 15 millimeter or 30 macro made in Japan and sold by Panasonic is great. Nice little, yes, absolutely. Problem is the GX9 is selling for, like, last time I checked, $1,000 on the used market. That's probably what it sold for new. It's crazy. You got the whole silver EM1 kit. Yeah, nice. Yeah, you got to keep that. But you wanted to sell, but you can't. Don't sell it, man. You're crazy. You're crazy if you sell that. Put it in a glass case. Put it on your shelf as a showpiece. Because that EM1 Mark I is what got Olympus and now OM Systems where it is today. That is the camera. I mean, I know there's been many great cameras since then, but if OM Systems didn't make, or if Olympus didn't make that camera, I would argue they wouldn't be in business today. That camera is that good, and I think that's significant in the Olympus history and now OM Systems. Just my opinion. And Contrail, good to see you. Let's see. GR3 is badass. I hated it at first, thought it was a big piece of stuff, but takes time to learn it. Yeah. Oh, yeah, a lot of people love that thing. I can't live without an EV. I could. I mean, I have. I have a TG5. I have an LX5, which I love. I love those little cameras. And they don't have EVFs. I'd rather they did, but, you know. And the GR3 has said that dust issues and some have noted issues with the controls busting wheel. Yeah, every camera has kind of its, what do they call it? Problems. That's, that's one way to put it. Every camera has its problems or common problems. I've heard those before, right? About the wheels, the buttons, or whatever, and the dust. I've heard that about the GR series before. And If GR4 also had an EVF, I might look at it. Yeah. I just can't imagine they'd put an EVF on it. Oh, I got something neat coming in, hopefully late next week, coming in from China. It's gonna be cool. It's gonna be perfectly complement a couple of my cameras. Some of you may know what it is because I talked about it in my shopping live stream because I said, "Oh, look what I bought." Let's see. 40 millimeters is great. In my opinion, go with the X3, the X3 GR. Okay. 40 is a nice focal length. It is very comfortable. And Laura says, are they selling the GR3X with two batteries? I hear you should take one extra one on walks. The GR is still sold out. I don't know. I see them time to time on the used market, for about the same price as new, maybe a little less. But batteries aren't that expensive. You can buy OEM batteries for probably 50 bucks, right? And generics, good luck with that, but you can get generics for a lot less. Ads, please don't turn into Robin Roll. Yeah, I know. Um, I think Robin, I don't know what, I've never watched his live streams after. I've always tried to catch them live. But I wonder if he's having the same issue as I have. Like I said, I'm going to try and mitigate that quite a bit so that it's only every 10 or 15 minutes. Because, I get this like graph of where all the ads are in the stream after it's, on the replay. And I just go in and I click and I go about 10 minutes and I delete and I go about another 10 minutes. I delete everything in between. But when I delete everything in between, sometimes I delete three, sometimes I delete four at a time because if I delete three, it's not quite 10 minutes. But if I delete four, sometimes it's 15 minutes. It's the way they're spaced out. So that's why I said it's between 10 and 15 minutes. It's not like a perfectly linear placement of ads. So I delete three or four ads throughout the stream, which accounts to 10 to 15 minutes per ad, which I think is reasonable enough, right? And Lauren says, Rob, the real problem in photos has to do with the lack of story or beauty, as in wonderful cameras and lenses being used to capture images on nothing. Beautiful, nothing. Yes. Yes. And, photography, like I said, is a different subject from gear. Because we can talk about gear all day long and not even show one photograph, right? Because it wouldn't matter. We're talking about the gear, capability, the technology, the design, the inspiration of the design, the history of that design, the anomalies, what it's lacking, what it has unique. That can be a whole conversation by itself without showing a single photo. But if you talk about photography, same argument can be had. You can look at beautiful photos that tell stories, have great composition, maybe something very unique and interesting, or something totally never seen before. There's so many amazing artists, or how to, you know, to see a certain style that a photographer has and be able to recognize that in every photo they take. You could talk about all that stuff and never talk about the gear. Never say, gee, what camera did they use? Is that film? Is that digital? It doesn't matter, right? Because the photography stands on its own when it's good photography. And it doesn't matter what the gear was used to capture that image. Uh, but for me, I like to do photography with different cameras, but they're not, and they're related. They're related on a very, very thin line, I think. The relationship between the two is very thin. Because obviously there's some photos you cannot capture without the right gear, right? And people can argue that if you have the more expensive gear, the better lenses, that you will get a better image than someone else, or than another camera, I should say, that, maybe the lens is a little soft, maybe the camera doesn't have good ISO performance, maybe et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But we're not talking about photography still. We're still talking about the gear. We're talking about what is the image quality that can be produced by that gear. But image quality is not photography because there's so many amazing and epic photos that the image quality is subpar, right? They're grainy, they're underexposed, they're overexposed, whatever. They're still amazing. It's amazing. It's an amazing art or piece of art. It's a masterpiece, so to speak, regardless of the image quality itself. So anyway, but yeah, I agree 100% ultimately is with what you're saying. And I have the Ricoh side toward screen says I have the Ricoh GXR with one lens module. I have to get more. I'm trying to slow my buying. Ugh. You know what's gonna happen is a year from now, I'm gonna say I need to slow down. Maybe not even a year, maybe in a month. I mean, today I'm thinking I need to unsubscribe from eBay notifications for that Panasonic S1R. I got another one today. I get them almost every day. There's a new S1R for sale on eBay, and I look at it, I'm like, man, that would be a nice camera to have. Because again, that's a piece of technology that I think in history 5, 10 years from now, that's gonna be a camera that people are gonna look back at, and this is the camera that started Panasonic Lumix in the full frame market. This was their first, or one of their first. One of, they released 2. I don't know which one was first. But this will be the camera, and it'll be kinda interesting and unique in that sense, and it's really it doesn't use a Sony sensor. Did you know that? I forget who the manufacturer is, but it's not made by Sony, so it's kinda unique in that sense too. So, and all the capabilities it has, and I don't care if it has, uh, contrast detect only autofocus, because I'm gonna use the camera for its intended purpose, and that is to capture high resolution stills, landscapes, product photography, still life, things like that. Sports action, yeah, that camera's not gonna cut it. I've seen a few videos where they tried to demo that camera doing well with sports action, but I can tell you it's not. It's not gonna do that well. Because I had that camera for a little while, and it's my biggest regret is selling that. I've sold dozens of items, no regrets, but that thing, I would heavily regret selling. Yeah, YouTube Premium is your friend for a price, I know. Google made a great buy in buying YouTube, yes. YouTube is awesome. I mean, I think about subscribing because I watch a lot of YouTube, and the ads, while I appreciate the ads, uh, but I would have to cancel Netflix or something to offset, right? Because I don't wanna have 10 different subscriptions. Basically, I have Prime and Netflix, that's it. So I'd have to give up one. It would have to be Netflix, but I love Netflix. They have so many great shows. Yes, Rob, but are the ads s I don't understand, Lauren, I'm sorry. And Marcus says, "You present all this great information for free. You deserve any compensation. If we have to endure an ad here and there, it's a small price to pay. Don't." Okay, I won't disable them, but I'm definitely going to curate the ads. I'm going to cull them down to a minimum for the live streams. The 10, 15-minute videos, sometimes I got the long form videos. That doesn't seem to be affected as much as the live streams seem to be hit pretty hard with the ads on the replay side. During the live stream, I already have it set to conservative because you have 3 settings: conservative, medium, and just in your face, right? Whatever that third one they call it. I have it set to conservative, so ideally you're only seeing an ad every 10 or 15 minutes while I'm live, I believe. But it's on the replay that gets that you get slaughtered, it's death by 1,000 cuts. And it's not just you guys, it's me, right? I don't want to be cut off every couple of minutes. I got something to say. And sometimes it takes longer than a couple of minutes. And Roger's here. Good to see you, Roger. I feel like there's an email you sent me that I haven't responded to yet. Uh, Let me know if I haven't responded to your email, because my email box just, as you can imagine, just gets full fast. But I do try to respond to everyone's email uh, as much as I can. I don't think I've missed any, but sometimes I do. And I apologize for that, but it's not intentional. I'm not ignoring. Sometimes what happens is I'll get asked a question that I can't answer right away. And I have to do a little bit of research and try and figure out if there is an answer or solution to your question. And then, you know, a week goes by and then I forget. But I try to reply when I can. David says, I always miss the beginning as I have to hit oh, see, my chat jumped all the way back up to almost the beginning. I'm going to scroll down to the bottom and work my way up. There's 69. Oh, that's awesome. 69 people. I can't see how many people are watching on my app here. That's awesome. Thank you so much. 69 people. That's not bad for just, turning the camera on and saying, hey, what's up? We need a Rob Trek merch shop. Oh, man. I don't know. I'm not good at that stuff. You have to be a little bit creative and come up with stuff that people would want to buy and pay for. What kills me about the merch shop is, it's like $25 for a t-shirt or something. And I'm like, why would anybody pay $25 for a t-shirt? Right? Just, I wouldn't do it. I see a lot of, I don't want to say a lot, but I do see people time to time in the photo club and different places wearing merch from like Fro, I Shoot Raw. I do see that time to time. Uh, but yeah, I'm not buying it. I ain't paying $25 for a t-shirt. And Dave Asher says second for a Rob. All right. I'll give that some thought. I'd rather just do the 99-cent membership thing or coffee or donations. But a merch shop, what would I put on there? Yeah, I have to think about that. I have to think of something creative. I don't want everybody to just have a shirt that says Rob Trek, because then everybody will think you're Rob, right? Um, yeah, premium. Yeah, see, that's the other catch, right? As I was thinking about getting it before the Google Music. I have Amazon Music now, which is part of Prime. Not quite as nice as the Amazon Music subscription, but it's good enough for casual listening. And let's see. Okay, so Shri, you were talking about the lens hood. Yeah, I have no idea. Like $60 on eBay. Are you serious? What I've seen people do is they buy a 72 millimeter rubber hood. Okay, so it screws on to the front of your thing and it's rubber. And you collapse it and extend it as needed. That could be an option. Doesn't look as nice as the OEM hood, but it is an option. I seriously doubt it. I can't imagine that YouTube allows those kinds of ads. I've never seen one ever, but I don't watch those kind of things on YouTube. Maybe if I was watching a risky YouTube video, I might get presented with ads like that, but I've never seen one. And Crate Crate is saying Anyone else having red tint as shadow? Oh yeah, I saw your question on my Instagram about this. I haven't had a chance because I just got back today. I haven't had a chance to look at that. It doesn't show up in certain situations. Depends where I point the camera. Uh, yeah, you were saying something about in different lighting conditions, right? So let me see. A red shift in the EVF. Honestly, I haven't seen it, but I haven't been looking for it. So if it's there, it's very subtle that I didn't notice it. But if anyone has noticed this in their OM3, let him know because I don't see it. And it's very hard unless I'm standing right next to you and you point it at something and say, there it is. And then I look and I said, okay, now I see what you're talking about. Because as it is, I don't see it. Um, but I'm not sure how I can diagnose this problem without really standing next to you because it's not obvious. Like what you need to do is if you know another person with an OM3, compare your two cameras with each other if that's possible. It doesn't have to be an OM3. Compare it to say uh, any other OM system camera, the OM5, the OM1 Mark II. But the OM5 has the same EVF. So if you know anybody that has the same EVF, like even I think the OM10 or EM10 Mark IV has the same EVF, just maybe a slightly smaller magnification. That would be the way to do it. And then you can hopefully diagnose if there is a problem by comparison. Yeah, that would be a very, very tough question for me to answer because I haven't noticed it yet. I can't imagine what lighting conditions that you would have this issue. So I don't think I'll be able to answer the question for you, unfortunately. But if I do see it come up, I'll look for it next time I go out. I didn't, because I went out all day today. I didn't look for it because I didn't see your message until I got home today around 2 o'clock. I'll look for it going forward, a red tint in the shadow area. I'll look for that. But I haven't noticed it now. Rob, just use your iPhone. Lauren is being funny because I love Lauren. He's being funny because he knows I don't use iPhone. So there's kind of an irony in this question, right? And I still have my Canon AE1 film camera, and I read they're coming out with a retro digital copy called the Canon RE1. Looks nearly identical. Yeah, I've heard that. I think I saw a little bit of that rumor. I haven't seen the picture, but I have heard they're coming out with a retro camera. That would be really interesting. Am I gonna do a D-Lux 8 vid? I don't know. I might, because you guys know I don't really do camera reviews. I do product reviews of like lenses and flashes and things they send me time to time. But the camera gear, I'd rather answer questions and help people that have already bought their stuff use the camera. It's hard for me to tell people that this camera is better than another camera for all the reasons that I mentioned earlier about, you know, camera I think is a very personal choice. And, you know, the most pragmatic person that doesn't care about a red dot on the front because you can't see it in the pictures, right? You can't see the name of the camera in the in your pictures unless you're shooting in a mirror. Uh, there's spec sheets out there, and I don't want to just read a spec sheet, and I don't have any way to effectively or in a scientific method kind of way to compare some of the other specifications. I have tried in the past to show like ISO performance of different cameras with pictures at different ISOs side by side. But DP Review does a good job of that. They got every camera at every ISO almost ever made, right? So why would anybody care what my ISO picture looks like, when I'm comparing two measly cameras that I have, when you can go to DP Review and compare every camera ever made, basically, at different ISOs. Uh, Sorry, that's a long answer. I don't mean to be rude, but I probably won't do a video about the D-Lux 8. Not a review. You didn't ask if I'm doing a review. You just asked if I'm doing a video. I might. I might. I don't know. Maybe a vlog. I haven't vlogged in a long time. I need to get back to that. I tried to vlog today, and the stupid battery died on me. Where is that thing? I tried to vlog today at the racetrack, and I recorded some video, and then I stopped the recorder. Then I went to another location, and I tried to turn it back on, and it said the battery's dead. Either I forgot to charge it up, or the battery just sucks on it. 'Cause I don't think I was shooting for like 45 minutes straight. It's supposed to last like 45 minutes, I think, just using this piece separately. Um, the little piece. And I had it on my hat like this. Let's see. How do you turn this on? I bought this thing so I could do some vlogging for you guys. And then it's been a year. I've had this for like a year, and I haven't done one vlog with it that I've published. Please put the G3 Action Pod to oh. So apparently the memory for all the videos is in here. It wants me to put this back in. Oh, it has a speaker. So how long is this video? 15 minutes. This is terrible. I'm sorry. You guys can't see. But this is it's me and David there. Yeah, exciting stuff. Let's see what else we got. There's 14 videos on here. No kidding. All right. How do you go to the next one? What's this? This I'm doing I don't know what the heck I'm doing here. Oh, that's the OM3, looks like. I'm out at Alexandria. I can see that. Anyway, I was doing something there. And then, ooh, some night photography. That looks like ICM. This is birding in my backyard. Anyway, I don't want to bore you to death. Ugh. I got 14 clips on there that I haven't offloaded. I don't know how old is the oldest one. Let's see. I don't even know how old that is. Okay. I got K&F batteries for emergencies. Yep. Yeah, the third-party batteries are fine for backup, but if you want reliable battery life, and you know you're going to need to use 2 batteries, get 2 OEM batteries. If you think you can get away with 1 battery most of the time, then just use generics for backup just to get you through that last few shots, right? And let's see. Yeah, no review is needed, but maybe interesting features or something. Okay. I have a yeah, I do have a 360. This one. This is the 1-inch version. Insta360, the 1-inch. And I use this for my paid jobs when they want me to do a 360 sort of virtual tour, so I can take pictures. I can show you one. See, this is one that I did using this camera. This is the last time I used it. There's the virtual tour. Is it going to come up? So we can go into the house here. I used the 360 camera for this. We can go over here, look up, look down, over here. Oh, this is a photo. So I had to do virtual staging too. So this furniture isn't real. This is furniture that I put in using some AI thing. Bathroom. Let's go into the bedroom. I think I have a virtual picture here too. Or no, that's upstairs. Let me go to the upstairs. Uh, this bedroom. So in this bedroom, I think I have a picture somewhere. Out here. Oh, well, here are the photos I did. Like this is all fake furniture. I just added that. That room was empty. This is the house. Nice house. Um, that's what I use it for. Which EVF style do I use on OM3? Oh, I like the one where I have all the information at the bottom so that the image is sort of shrunk a little bit so you can fit the information on the bottom. I don't know if that can even be seen. Yeah. There's no way to see, but if I go to the menu, I can tell you what number it is. Uh, where is it? EVF style number 2. So I like this one. EVF style number 2. Because I don't like the information overlaid on top of the composition that I'm trying to put together. Since English is not my primary language, I might not be clear. In letter-like exposure, aperture information, and style 1 EVF, I'm seeing white fonts, then red shadow on them. Looks like 3D. Oh, all right. Let's try style number 1. I'll take a quick look, but I can't promise that I'll be able to diagnose your problem. Okay, so what I would recommend, you probably did this already, but there's a diopter adjustment here on the side. There's a little wheel. Try adjusting that up and down until that sort of red outline goes away. See if that works. Because I noticed that when I put this up, my diopter was off a little bit, and I am seeing a little bit of that sort of like outline around the lettering. But if I adjust it just a click in one direction or the other, yeah, right there is perfect. That's what I did, is try adjusting the diopter. That might work. Okay. Hopefully you can see that right here on the side. There's a little wheel. Adjust that up and down until it's crystal clear. That may be all you need to do. And yeah, I doubt it's focus peaking or something like that, because that would be that would be obnoxiously, I think what he's talking about is more like that little bit of tearing or blurring effect. But that, yeah, that's a good point though. Check those things too. I just assumed it wasn't that, but maybe it is. Maybe it is because you have focus peaking or the highlight shadow indicators on. But he's talking about around the lettering and not so much around the the subjects or things in the image. Oh, awesome, Lauren. Lauren is a fantastic photographer. He shares with me his photo albums almost every week, and it's really a joy to go through them and look at them when I can. I don't look at all of them, but I do look at a lot of them, Lauren. So I appreciate that. And when shooting in monochrome, do you change any settings such as contrast, sharpening, filter? Depends. Yeah, sometimes depends on what look I'm going for. On the OM3, a lot of times I turn the grain off and I adjust the highlight shadow. So I might dial in like +3 shadow or +3 highlight, -3 shadow, just to get a little more contrast because I like punchy black and whites. So I do that. Sometimes I dial up the sharpness, which is another way of increasing contrast uh, in a more subtle way, right? But to make it a little bit crispy. So yeah, I experiment a little bit. And far as filters go, I do like to use the red filter a lot and the orange filter. Most of the time, I will use the red filter, but sometimes I'll dial in the orange filter because I don't want the effect to be quite as strong. But yeah, those are the settings I use. If you're not using style one, then do you not see the issue I'm talking about? Uh, no, no, it doesn't matter what style I'm using. When we're talking about the diopter adjustment, it affects all the different styles. Otherwise, I'm not seeing what you're talking about unless I get the diopter wrong. And thank you so much, Paolo. Oh, hey Rob, thanks for considering Sydney in your start time. First chance to watch it live, not a fan of BF, but if I was a collector, yep, OM3 later to go with the OM1 Mark II. I'm sorry, OM1.1, EM1.2, and GM5. The concept is great and useful. Well, thank you, Paolo. I really appreciate that. It's very generous of you. Um, so that was the problem, the diopter. All right, so we helped one person today. I'm so glad that was it. Okay. Uh, Xmeta says, would you buy secondhand Ollie 918 for 250 equivalent? I still miss some white. Yes. By all accounts, the 918, assuming it's in mint condition, is an excellent lens. And, I really like the wide angle. Uh, for doing architectural stuff, when I'm in the street, I almost like even fisheye lenses, and I use the fisheye lens more now. So, but to answer your question directly, 250 bucks is an amazing deal because that lens sells for 400 or 500 all day long used. Maybe 300, but 250, that's really cheap. It is this diopter. Awesome. Awesome. It's awesome when I can help really help one person with I mean, that's a little thing, right? And this goes back to really what my channel is all about is you never take any question and you don't want to belittle someone's question or discount it as user error, or you take everyone's question very seriously, right? No matter how ridiculous it might seem to a lot of people, right? But you take it very seriously because it's a big deal. Maybe not to me, right? But to other people, it's a big deal. Could be a deal breaker. Trust me. You know? I mean, there are some problems that are absolutely ridiculous, but I don't insult a person and say you're being ridiculous. Like when a memory card, you get different quality images depending on the memory card you're using. That's gonna stick in my head forever. How do you get a different image quality based on the memory card you're using? Yeah. So anyway, uh, that wasn't a question somebody asked me. It was a video that I saw where a guy was comparing the image quality using different memory cards in his album. Abnormal, please. Oh, I got an error. I never seen that error. Album abnormal. Please restart your camera first. Anyway, uh, yep, clear example of how you get help to others. Sure as heck, worth 99 cents a month and more. Oh, thank you. And let's see, what's your recommended SD card? Okay, really depends on the camera. If your camera supports UHS-2, and most of the modern Olympus and OM system cameras support UHS-2 cards, and that's the cards that have double row pins like this, right? Versus, say, wow, I used all my memory cards. Normally I have them all in here. But there are memory cards that have single row pins, right? Those are UHS-1 cards. I recommend this one specifically, the PNY uh, Elite X Pro 60. It's a V60 UHS-2 card, 256 gig. I believe it's on sale right now for $36. Smoking deal. You will see a snappiness to your cameras you never seen before. Now I sound like a salesman, but seriously, your camera will perform better from the EM10 Mark II up. Your camera will perform better with a V60 or a UHS-2 card. This one in particular is very cheap. It's extremely high quality card. PNY is an excellent brand. It's very fast. It outperforms other V60 cards from the tests that I've seen on other websites uh, by a healthy margin in some cases. Like I know this card was faster than the Sony Tough B90 card. Well, all right, strike that. I'm just pulling numbers out my butt now. But I have seen tests where this outperforms other brand name cards that are rated the same speed by a significant margin. And I would be amiss if I didn't do a little ad here. See if it's still on sale. And then I'll talk about the next card. So there's it's $40 now. So it's this card here. You can see I bought it myself 3 times as recently as last month. I bought another one because I bought the OM3. So this is the card I'm using in the OM3, as you just saw, right? This is the card. 40 bucks is really good. It's still an excellent price. So definitely do this. And I'm going to put my affiliate link for this in the chat. So I'm going to earn like 50 cents if you buy it. But V60 SD card. Strongly recommend this for Olympus OM system cameras. Now, if you don't do sports action photography, birds in flight, where specifically if you're not using the continuous high-speed shutter, like shooting 25 frames per second, 10 frames per second, whatever. If you're just a point and shoot one shot at a time, you don't need a V60. Okay. In that case, I recommend the Samsung. I might have that. Oh, I put a V90 in that, or V60. Anyway, one of my other cameras, this is what I use. This one, the Samsung 256 gig. I bought one back in September. This is a good deal. Let's see, they have the Pro Plus. Sometimes if you Pro Ultimate 34, no, you don't need that. USB reader included. That's not available. I'm sorry, I'm just shopping for you real quick. This is what I do on Tuesdays. All right, this is the way to go. $24.10. Let me turn off this. This is a pain sometimes. So this is if you don't like do continuous high-speed shooting at all. You do it occasionally, spend the extra $10 or $15 and get the V60 card from PNY. You don't do a lot of continuous shooting, but sometimes you do. Just get this card and save $15. Okay, this is an excellent card. So let me get affiliate link for that. So this video is sponsored by Rob Trek. There's the Samsung SD card. Do you need 256 gig? Probably not. You can get one of the smaller cards, but for the tiny bit of difference in price, just get the biggest card you can, because you never know when you're going to need more, right? Especially if you have a dual card slot camera. I put two 256 gig cards in there. Rarely do I fill up card slot number 1, because I always take the card out. I load them onto my computer, then I format it in the camera when I put it back in. Card slot number 2, I never format until it gets full. That way I always have a backup on my camera. I treat the second card slot as internal memory. Don't ever take that card out. Always stays in the camera, always has backups until I format it, of course. But that way, if anything happens to my computer, and over the last, I don't know, 5 years, let's say, it only happened to me once where I deleted something off my computer by accident, but thank God, like a couple of weeks later, it was still on my SD card on my camera in card slot number 2. And I was able to recover photos and put them back in. Okay. And then Rob Trek merch, brand guest. Oh, see, already you got some great ideas. I would have never even thought of that. I was thinking like more pragmatic type things, like kit lenses rock or whatever. I'm just terrible at creative things. Camera version of abort retry fail. Yep. Tim is asking, what sharpening are you normally set at when shooting general stuff and in RAW? Okay, I usually I'm set at 0 regardless if I'm shooting in RAW. 'Cause RAW is not affected by basically all the settings in the camera other than exposure. So you don't need to worry about sharpening, saturation, highlight shadows, uh, color space, sRGB versus Adobe RGB. These are all irrelevant when you're shooting RAW because when you import the RAW file into your photo editing software, whether it be OM Workspace or Lightroom or DxO that I use, it's going to demosaic the image on its own and apply uh, and apply its own. Well, demosaicing is basically processing the raw. So Lightroom's going to process the raw its own way, and it's going to ignore sharpening, highlight shadow. It's going to ignore all those settings. All those settings are for JPEG only. It's only going to affect your JPEG. It will affect what you see in the EVF while you're shooting. So if you set it to monochrome and you're shooting raw, you're going to see a monochrome image. But when you bring it back into your editing software, the raw image is going to be in color again. It may show as a black and white initially when it retrieves the initial preview of the raw file. The preview of the raw file that's built into it will be whatever settings you used, but the raw file itself has to be processed, and it's going to ignore, you can ignore all of those settings. But normally, I would use 0 for sharpening. The exception being is like sometimes when I'm shooting black and white and I want to use the straight out of camera JPEGs, I will sometimes crank the sharpening up to get effectively more contrast. You know what error A642 on the, no, I'm not familiar with that. Camera works normally, but displays this in the service menu. Sorry, I have no idea. Robin Wong might know. Can we get a link? Oh yeah. Yep, I just gave that out. So definitely that's the OM3. And Ira's asking, if I use UHS-2 card as card 1 and UHS-1 card as my backup, will that slow down the buffer? Yes. Well, it depends how you have your dual card slot settings, right? If you have it the way you described it here, you're implying that you're going to be writing the both cards at the same time. So yes, it's going to slow your camera down. It doesn't slow the buffer down specifically, but clearing the buffer slows down, right? So if you have you have the what? Anyway, let's say you have the OM1, you have a 93 frame buffer. That's going to be instant, blink of an eye, 93 frames per second, right? Or 93 frames is going to fill up just as fast regardless of the SD card. But clearing the buffer is going to be very slow with the UHS-1. So the difference in speed is with a UHS-1 card, it takes about 45 to 50 seconds to clear 93 raw images from the buffer. With a UHS-2 card, it takes about 15 seconds to clear the buffer. And by putting them together, mixing them, the camera slows down to the slowest memory card. So it's going to take 45 seconds to clear 93 frames. So I did a full test on this. Let me see if I can find the spreadsheet. And I'll give you a link. You can download what I found. Where's my Google Drive? Okay. Google Drive. Search, SD card. This is it. Yeah. So I did this, what, a couple of years ago with the OM1 versus the, how come I can't zoom in? But I'll share this. Anyone with a link, copy link. Okay. So this is the UHS SD card buffer PDF. Okay, so there's a link. You can download that directly. So let me just read out, assuming I remembered this correctly. If you have UHS-1, UHS-2. If you have a UHS-2 card in slot 1, a UHS-1 card in slot 2, the buffer clears in 20 seconds. Okay, that's interesting. But it doesn't take that much longer, but it took 20 seconds to clear the buffer. You can download it and you'll see exactly what I'm looking at. I'm looking at the second page here. UHS-2 plus UHS-1, 120 frames per second. I captured 134 images. It took 20 seconds to clear the buffer. The buffer was full instantly in 1 second. And then after the buffer was full, I was able to shoot at 4.6 frames per second. So that's not bad, but this scenario here, OM1, when I was shooting RAW plus JPEG, here it took 60 seconds to clear the buffer. Because now we're writing 186 images to the card and not 93, right? And my buffer slowed down to 1.2 frames per second. So this test is a couple years old. And back then I was recommending, the Samsung, but I was recommending the Pro grade at the time. Let's see if that link still works. So don't buy this card. This is way too expensive and it's not any faster than the $40 card I showed you earlier from PNY. So in the 2 years time or 3 years since I made that spreadsheet, I should update that spreadsheet. I don't want you to spend $229 for a memory card that's not going to work any faster in your camera. Don't use the link in that. The Samsung card you can use, but not the Pro grade. Pro grade's a great card. I still use it in my OM1 actually for my paid work, but not because it's faster. It's just because I already bought it. I think I paid. I bought this in March of 2022. I didn't pay $229. I paid. I bought that card when I bought my OM1 Mark I back in 2022. I paid $172 plus tax, 182. I paid like, divide by 4. I paid like 4.5 times more money for this card for no reason. Okay. Okay. What happened to my stream page? Oh, here we go. Roger says, just found my U.S. Air Force resolving power test chart. I've been wanting to use to test my lenses. Google it to see what I mean. It's a good chart to use. I think I've seen this chart. Yeah, I've seen this chart. The challenge with testing lenses, making sure that the focal plane and your sensor are exactly parallel. That's a tough thing to do. If it's off a little bit, one corner of the image is going to look softer than the other, right? Obviously, because your focal plane is a little bit off. That's tough. That's tough. That's why I have a hard time. It takes me a long time to get that thing lined up perfectly. Now, your depth of field is going to minimize that problem. And the US Air Force chart is not the lines, the frequency of the lines are not that high. A fairly low frequency chart. So you'll be okay if you're not perfect. But if you get a high frequency chart that says 40 lines, 50, 60, 90 lines, if it has a lot of lines per inch or per millimeter, that precision is critical. So that's why to really test a lens, you have to have a dedicated device that you mount the lens to that shines lasers through it. Very complicated, you know? Uh, but anyway, just let you know, I struggle with that myself. Okay. Rob, I used it when I shot film. Yes. Film doesn't have that much resolution, right? So that chart would be perfect. And for digital cameras, the frequency of those line pairs is not that high. So I don't know how useful it would be. Uh, but it'll be good enough to at least see if the corners are softer than the center, right? You can just visually see that. You don't have to know what the line pairs are, what the exact resolving power is. You just have to see if there is some difference at different apertures. But you have to keep in mind that when you increase the aperture, increasing the depth of field, which is going to kind of mask a little bit an actual defect in the lens. So generally those test charts you want to shoot basically wide open to see where the defects in the lens are. And then you can start stopping it down and seeing what gets corrected by stopping it down. Because things do get corrected as you stop a lens down, like chromatic aberrations. Um, Stopping a lens down will correct that. I don't quite understand the physics of that. That's a whole, I'm not a lens designer. I don't have an engineering degree in lens design. But I got a feel for it, right? It doesn't have to be hard. Don't make it hard. Just stop the lens down. If it's sharper, then that's all you need to know, right? Okay. Um, Great says, I'm really happy I sold my chunky ZF. Still a great camera and moved to the OM3. Was very motivated today taking this light cam and 17. Love it. That's awesome. I know you had some concerns about it being uh maybe a demo because of the shutter count, but yeah, I wouldn't worry about it. And I took out my battery because I when I messaged you, I said I don't remember what the charge was in my battery when I took it out of the box. That's because I never charged it, but it was almost empty. My brand new battery from OM Systems was almost empty out of the box, so I had to charge it. I think it's on the charger now. I took it off before I left the house. I don't like to leave anything charging while I'm not home. Not that anything's ever happened, but you always hear these stories about batteries exploding and things like that. And I want to be home if something like that happens so that I can put the fire out, so to speak. The old rule of thumb was to stop the lens down 2 stops for the sweet spot of the lens, maybe 3. Yep. Still applies today, you know. Uh, and it's more important for like product photography, still life, things that you want critical sharpness and depth of field is irrelevant, right? Then, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And Key says, Rob, many people say they don't worry so much about photo noise because of apps like DxO Pure. In your opinion, do image upscaling apps counter the arguments people have about MFT resolution? Not really. So a lot of people do say this, right? Like, I don't mind shooting high ISO with my camera because DxO Pure Raw is going to clean it up. And that is 100% true, right? I clean up all of my images with DxO Pure Raw, or I use Photolab, which is basically their editing software with Pure Raw built in. Absolutely true. And I don't worry about noise as much as I used to. So it's true. Okay. That said, all things being equal, you can use DxO Pure Raw on a full frame sensor just as easily as you can on a Micro Four Thirds sensor. So to that end, uh, you're going to get even better performance. I mean, pixel for pixel, full frame sensor is going to give you better image quality. I mean, just what it is. And when you apply the same processing to a full frame image, say the 24 megapixel Nikon ZF to the 20 megapixel OM3, if you're in a high ISO situation, you're going to get a better image, more dynamic range, blah, 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 out of the 24 megapixel sensor. So in that sense, the argument is moot, right? It's like you can apply the same processing to whatever sensor you're using. So all things being equal, uh, you can you can say that you can still worry about noise with DxO, or you can worry about noise with the smaller sensors, regardless of the processing, because noise is always going to uh, reduce fine details and sharpness and all of that stuff. There's just no way around it. And DxO is not a magic pill. I mean, it drives me nuts when people say, this is a game changer, right? For Micro Four Thirds, you don't need to get a full frame camera anymore. But let's be honest, why would a full frame camera user not use the same software as a Micro Four Thirds user and get better results? It's just that's the way it is. But it's absolutely true that I don't worry about noise like I used to, because camera noise is not bad at all in a Micro Four Thirds sensor. I would say it's virtually equal to a lot of APS-C sensors that I've seen. And it's not that far off from a full frame sensor unless you really start pushing things to the extreme. You're shooting at ISO 25,000. Yeah, you're going to be able to pull more detail out of a full frame sensor than you will a Micro Four Thirds sensor. That's just plain and simple. But for most images, like when I'm doing my birding and I want the fine details of the feathers, there's a lot of variables there that I can shoot at ISO 6400 with my Micro Four Thirds camera and not worry about the noise and loss of detail for two reasons. Number one, DxO does an excellent job of extracting the details from a very noisy image. Because of the demosaicing process, they are the best at it, in my opinion. They are the best. So I can get excellent images at ISO 6400. Number two is particularly with birds and animals and things that our eyes are not specifically trained for, right? Our perception of detail is different for those kinds of things. Now, something our eyes are very trained to see, right, are letters, numbers, faces. When we take a very high ISO image and denoise it with DxO, and you put a full frame sensor at 25,000, a Micro Four Thirds sensor at 25,000, denoise them both. If it's a bird or an animal, a dog, whatever, there's not going to be much difference. They're both going to look amazing. There may be some finer detail in the full frame, but yeah, you don't have to worry about noise and detail loss. But if you're doing art reproduction, God knows you wouldn't shoot it at 25,000, but if you're looking at letters on signs, like in street photography or people's faces, you're going to notice the difference between these two images. Like on the Micro Four Thirds sensor, you might see the denoising algorithm on a person's face that's maybe a little bit in a distance. They're like only less than 1 megapixel in the frame. Maybe one eye looks like it's closed, the other eye looks like it's open because it's been denoised. But on the full frame sensor, you can clearly see both eyes are open, right? Now, overall, the images are going to look very similar, but when you start pixel peeping, yeah, there's going to be some loss of detail somewhere. That's just one example that I can give. Uh, so this is what I found to be true, right? Is usually the opposite of a truth is another truth. Okay? Both things can be true at the same time, even though they contradict each other. So yes, it's true, DxO mitigates the need to use a full frame sensor by a huge degree. That I can shoot at ISO 6400, ISO 12,000, and I don't worry about noise and detail loss because our perception of detail, our perception of noise, not perception, but and the noise, all reduced to a degree that it's almost irrelevant if this was shot with a full frame versus a micro four thirds, right? But it's also true what I was just saying is if you push the sensor to 25,000 ISO and you denoise a full frame 24 megapixel sensor and a 20 megapixel micro four thirds sensor, there's going to be defects in the micro four thirds sensor that are irrecoverable that you might be able to recover in the full frame sensor. Just a fact. I hope that makes sense. Okay. Uh, I rarely shoot at ISO higher than 16 or 32, depending on the camera, old school habits. And that's good practice, you know? I don't worry about ISO anymore because of DxO. So statement is true, number one, true statement. Uh, but I do worry about shooting at ISO 25,000 with a micro four thirds sensor, regardless of DxO, because I know I'm going to lose details. I'm going to start to see smudging and loss of detail. But it's good practice to keep your ISO as low as possible all the time. And T-Dot says, I run a 512 gig CF Express Type B in car slot 1 for video only, and I run a 256 V60 UHS2 in car slot 2 for RAWs only. So that's a common practice, right? Separate your video. And a lot of times, if you're shooting very high bit rate video, you know, 8K 100 megabits or 4K 200, 300 megabits, it's almost mandatory to use a fast CF Express Type B card. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to record these high bit rate, high information type videos. But for RAW, yeah, V60 should be able to handle just about any kind of RAW file. I don't care if it's the 100 megapixel Hasselblad or whatever. A V60 card's going to be able to handle that. And Rob Trigg, you're technically correct about full frame versus MFT about noise, but the modern AI assisted software noise is really a non-issue for 99% of the use. Yes, I agree 100%. 99% of the time. It's only when you push things, like I was saying, right? You got two images at ISO 25,000, and you're shooting a subject that our eyes are very sensitive to. Think about it. If we see our best friend, mom or dad, sister, brother, somebody we're very familiar with from 100 yards away, we'll recognize them, right? Because our eyes are and our brain are acutely tuned to recognize faces. From 100 yards away, I can see, yeah, that's my sister. No question, right? But if I'm shooting with a camera at ISO 25,000 and they're 100 yards away, I mean, anyway, I think, yeah, I think you understand my point is context of what the images we're shooting makes a big difference in our perception of noise and detail. And faces, letters, numbers, we're acutely tuned to very fine details. And we're going to see the difference in those kinds of subjects more than we would, say, a bird, where the feather pattern can be random. So our eyes are not trained. We don't look at birds like this, like we do in photos, right? Most of the time, they're like, we can just barely see them in the tree, right? We can walk right by a bird. Man, you ever been out with some birders? They can spot a bird from like a mile away because they're trained to see that bird. They've trained their eye and their brain to see that bird. Whereas if I went out, man, I'm like, where do you see it? Where is it? It's right there. I'm like, I don't see it. Like, it's right there. You blind, it's right there. I'm like, I don't see it. You know, anyway, you know what I'm talking about. Okay. Um, awesome. So I can't see. We're coming up on 2 hours. What do you guys want to do? I can keep going or we can call it, but I don't know how many people are here. I have no idea. I I don't want to end the stream. I just want to adjust these windows. I can keep going, but I need a 1-minute break to get some water or something. I've been just jibber jabbering for 2 hours. I'll leave it up to you guys. 54 still here. Okay. So I'm going to take a 1-minute break to get some water. And then, were you on next? When am I on Tuesday? Oh, I'll be on probably, I should be on around 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning, Eastern Standard Time. Um, that's my shopping stream. It's kind of a mix between like a normal photo chat, answering questions, and shopping, but I try to answer questions ideally that are more related to helping you buy something so I can make like 50 cents, you know? Um, but I'll answer any question in in my streams. The only time I'm a little bit more strict is like during the photo editing streams. I try to do the photo editing because that's what people are there to see. But these streams, like we're just hanging out. And then Tuesday stream, it's kind of like hanging out, unless there's something specific I'm trying to sell. Like if something is like on a really like these camera bags I got for $3, it's pretty freaking amazing. So I'm going to talk about that to death, etc. But okay, I'm going to take a 1-minute break. I'm going to come back, and then somebody tell me how many people are still here. And if there's still like more than 50 people here, I can go on all night. Isn't that what Captain America said? I can do this all day. All right, I'll be right back. Okay, that's much better. How my eyes, are they still white or have they gone bloodshot red? I'm back. Ask me anything. I will answer best I can. Especially if you're having a problem with your camera. I can do it. And Cray Cray says, I need to buy the battery charger for my own. Oh, yeah, I have an awesome recommendation. So you need to go to this page, right? I'm going to put it in here. robtrek.com/deals. So bookmark this page. Anytime you're going to buy something on Amazon, click on that link, see if there's a deal for it. If not, then shop for it and buy it some other way. Or if you need to buy, some more vitamins or whatever, right? Doesn't have to be camera related, is what I'm saying. Is you can buy this, you can buy anything after clicking that link and I'll get credit for it. And it helps. It helps. Every little bit helps. I think I made like $100 last month on affiliate, like Amazon. $100, man. That's a lot. Considering, I don't make that much at all. That's like more than I make on YouTube sometimes. Well, that's not true, but $100 is more than I used to make on YouTube. But let me show you specifically the charger. It's the one that I use, and I've answered this question. This is a very common question. So for those of you that heard this before, I apologize in advance. But this is a very, very common question that I think deserves a detailed answer. We scroll down. Somebody asked me to look up these mounts. I think it was you, Roger. I put them in here, but anyhow, let's scroll down. This one. No, that's the EM1. Sorry. You need the OM1 version. This one. This is the one that I bought 2 years ago. Well, 3 years, almost 3 years now, for my OM1. Okay, so let me get the link for it directly so you can have it now. I'm going to elaborate on why this is such a great charger just for a couple of minutes. This is not it. Microphone on? Yes. Hold on. Where is it? Oh, here. All right. So this is it, right? And so you can charge 2 batteries at a time. Has the LED indicators. Fine. But specifically is I buy this particular style of charger that has the removable plates. I can take out. So here's my OM1, DLX1. I can pop this in. So now what I can do is I can charge my LX100 and my OM1 battery at the same time. Because a lot of times I'll take these 2 cameras out. I'll have the OM1 with the 300 millimeter f4, and then I'll have my LX100 just for point and shoot stuff around while I'm out when I'm not using the 300. And this is something you can put in your car because this has both USB-C and USB 2. So I like these because of the plates. It allows me to, this is another very common 2-camera thing that I do. OM1 with my Pentax monochrome, right? So OM1 is going to be OM3. So it's going to be OM3 and Pentax monochrome will probably be a very common combination, or it might be OM3 and Leica D-Lux or LX100, whatever. So this is a great way to get 2 batteries ready to go as a backup or charged without having to have constantly separate cables. So if you have a very small workspace, like this is a very small office, this allows me to really really makes my charging station very versatile. I have a quite complicated charging station, so this simplifies it just a little bit more for me. That's why I like this. For most of you, you don't use multiple cameras when you go out like I do. So you would just have 2 OM1 batteries here and charge them both at the same time. It's not fast, but you don't want to charge it fast. Okay? You want to slow charge your batteries whenever possible so that they'll last longer. Okay. So that's all I had to say. Do you know if charging directly with high power output USB-C cables? No, 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 no. Okay, it doesn't matter if I put a 100-watt USB-C charger on this or plug in, you know, a 18-watt. This only requires, I think, 5 watts. So it's going to slow charge the batteries almost no matter what USB-C port you put in here. So it might charge like 4 watts if you have 2 in at the same time. Or if you have 1 in at a time, it'll charge like 8 watts, something like that. plugging in a 100-watt USB-C is not going to speed up the charging process because that's regulated in the charger itself. Now, they do have fast chargers. I'll give you an example. This is an 18-watt charger that I use for my Sony. And this, sorry about that, my my little tray. I keep all my different charging plates in here. You know, so if I need to charge, what's this? This is for my Sony NEX camera. Another LX100. LX100. This is for my old Fujifilm point and shoot camera. Anyway, this is what I love about this plate system is I can just swap plates for whatever camera I want to charge. I don't have to like swap chargers. Anyhow, this you can plug in like a 20-watt USB-C PD compatible type power supply, and it'll charge the batteries 9 watts each at a time. So it's basically twice as fast as say something like this, right? Because this is PD compatible, power delivery compatible. So the device, the charger itself, has some intelligence in it to regulate the power that it gets from whatever you plug into it. So if you plug in like a regular USB-C that's not PD compatible, it's going to slow charge these batteries. And if you plug in a high power USB-C, it's only going to use up to 18 watts of that high power USB-C charger. But that's still twice as fast, something like this. But I don't recommend fast charging your batteries unless you need to, because they will last longer if you slow charge. Because when you fast charge them, basically it generates heat, and heat degrades the battery faster, right? The batteries get warmer. I mean, that doesn't get hot to the touch, but they do generate more heat. And over time, it's going to degrade the battery faster. So always slow charge your batteries if that's a viable option. So I always slow charge. I have batteries ready overnight. So I know what I'm going to go shoot with the next day usually, right? Not like some random thing. Not always. And I just plug my batteries in the night before and charge them, or the day before. Um, can you recommend an adapter for Canon lenses on M43? I'd like to use my 70 to 300. So I think the FD that I just showed on my deal page, I'm not as familiar with the Canon mount lenses, but I believe either one of these, there's a $13.95 one here, and there's a $31 one here from K&F. And this one obviously is going to be very, very high quality. I've bought their sort of pro lens mounts that cost like $30. And the mounts, there's no wiggle room. It's very snug, but not tight and smooth. It's just a precision, very, very precisely machined adapter. That said, the $14 adapter works fine. And you're not going to see any better performance from one adapter versus the other when you attach your lens. They're going to operate exactly the same. And I don't think one is going to last longer than the other. There's nothing, uh, you know, it's just a machined piece of metal. No moving parts really. But the high quality one, you will notice a difference in how well it mounts onto your camera. It's going to be smoother. And then when you mount your lens onto the adapter, that's going to attach very smoothly. It's not going to bind or feel tight or scratchy, that kind of thing. But I usually buy the cheaper one when I have the choice. But I have bought the expensive one because I had a Leica lens that I wanted to mount. I wanted to have the very best adapter for that Leica mount lens. So I bought the more expensive one in this case. So, um, I would just go to my deal page. Again, I'll put it in here again. It's on my deals page. Just scroll down and you'll see it there. T-Top says, "We love your show. Thank you very much." Oh, well, thanks for watching. So can you buy different plates for that charger? You can, but it's cheaper to just buy the charger. You buy the plates separately, they're like $5, $6 anyway, right? It's hard to find let me see if I can find one. They're hard to find on Amazon. But like this one, for example. It's like $11.39 to buy the plates. So you might as well just buy the charger that comes with the plates. And then you have two chargers. You can put one in your car and put one in your office. And you're all set. You know what I mean? So technically you can, but it just doesn't make any sense to do it that way. Remember that the FD lenses are the film camera, not the EF lenses, which are digital. Ah, okay, yeah, that's right. So F, I guess, is film. I don't know. E is electronic. So the mounts that I showed you were FD film mount. Who was asking that? Waj. Adapter for my Canon lenses, the 70 to 300. So 70 to 300, I have that lens. Just put it somewhere. Oh, it's right here. This is the 70 to 300, right, for Canon? This is an EF mount. Does it say that anywhere? Yeah, it says EF right here. So if you have the EF one, you need to get the EF mount. So let me find that real quick. So there is a Canon mount, or there's an expensive option here. This is EF to M43. Then there's the generic one. So I'm looking at this page here, right? This is the generic one. So they look exactly the same, more or less. EF to M43. Okay. So there's those two. But thank you, Roger, for pointing that out. I'm not a big Canon user, but there's FD, EF, and now RF, right? And then EFS. Very, very complicated. Canon has no problem swapping mounts. They have M mount, which is now dead, I guess. Whereas Nikon has been Nikon F mount for a long time until they went to the what do they call it now? Nikon Z mount. Okay, I don't see any other questions here. I'll give it just a minute, but how many people are on now? It's just got to be a way for me to look at that quickly. 51? Is that right? Okay, this is what I'll do. Long live the Canon. Still use my gear. I know, right? 52 people. Okay, so let me just end with a few pictures then. I did want to talk about these. I talked about them briefly in one of my streams, but not like my Sunday photo chat stream where there's different people watching, mostly, I think. Where's that page? I'll just go to my Flickr. Okay, this image here, this is the OM3. This is a photo stacked image, but it's only 2 images. So I focused on the rocks and I focused on the lighthouse, and then I used Photoshop and stacked them together. Because otherwise, either the rocks will be out of focus or the lighthouse will be out of the focus. One of them are going to be out of focus. And because the water here is in between, and I don't have to worry about the sharpness of anything in between here, it was very easy to blend these two together and get a really nice sharp image from front to back. So this is focus stacking done not in camera, but using Photoshop. This image here, nothing special. Yeah, it was cold. That's all I remember. It's really freaking cold. I'm so glad it's going to be warm this week. Yeah, nothing special here. This is grainy film number 2 on the OM3. So this is the grainy film art filter. This was a spray and pray shot where, I probably captured, 20 images, and then this one was the perfect one, right? So continuous shutter. So this one you can see, this is the pop art filter number 2, I believe, from the OM3. And this is where you can see that the depth of field is very, very shallow. Well, it's not shallow, but because these two things are very far apart, it's impossible to get one in focus and, it's impossible to get both in focus. That's why the earlier image, I had to do the focus stacking. And because this is at f7.1, which is like in full frame terms, this is like f14. So when you have objects that are really far apart from each other and you want everything in focus, you have no option but to focus stack or focus bracket and stack in post-processing. This is a long exposure where I combined, I believe, a real ND filter and the live ND filter together. I got this shot. I had a 5-stop variable ND filter set to 5 stops, and then I used the ND64, the live ND in our cameras, so that I could get this long exposure. This was a 30-second exposure. Let's see. This is a double exposure or image overlay. Okay, this shot here, I used a real ND filter, so a 5-stop variable ND filter, in addition to the grad ND filter, the graduated ND filter built into the camera. So I was able to darken the sky while at the same time getting the smooth water. This water is very choppy. So this was a technique of just using 2 things, a real ND filter and the grad ND filter at the same time. So I'm just trying to give you some ideas that you can apply using the computational features with more traditional methods of doing long exposure. This, I believe, was the same idea. This was a graduated ND filter for the sky, and then a regular 5-stop ND filter so that I could get the long exposure without overexposing the sky. This is just simply a grad ND filter. So with the grad ND filter, I can make the sky dark enough so you can see all the clouds. Obviously, the sun is still clipped, but at the same time, be able to get the foreground with enough light so that you can see what's in the foreground. This is a high ISO image. ISO 10,000 straight out of camera. This is the whatchamacallit. Uh dramatic tone filter number 1. The color dramatic tone. I don't know why this image like was pretty popular on my Instagram feed, but not so much here. It's okay. This is an okay image, nothing great. This is the pop art filter. I like this image a lot because it's architecture. It's kind of my favorite subject, to be honest. And so on and so on. Okay, so we'll just end it there. Okay, yes, I use both magnetic and screw-on. I like the magnetic, but when it comes to variable ND filters, they're going to be screw-on. So I use both. If it's a variable ND, I'm going to use a screw-on. Magnetic filters are going to be solid ND filters. And I'll talk a little bit about that in my video. That's a good question, though. That's a very good question. So you gave me a talking point for one of my videos coming up. And then, what are your thoughts on the GX9 for casual street? Someone local is offering a decent deal on one with a low shutter count. Is there an OM camera you'd recommend alternatively? Yeah, the EM5 Mark III, hands down, to me is the better camera of the two. Not the same form factor. One's more of a rangefinder style and is technically a little smaller. The GX9 is a little smaller camera, but not significantly so. And I mean, it's all subjective, but to me, they're about the same size, right? Now, the GX9 has that, I think it has that tilting EVF. I don't find that too useful. But I'm not sure it has that. Maybe they took it away on the GX9. I can't remember. Either way, I don't find it that useful personally. Some people love it. Yeah, it has the tilting EVF, right? No. Yes, no. GX8 definitely did. GX9, I believe, did it. Anyway, I wouldn't, but yeah, mainly because of all the features, right? The OM1 or the EM5 Mark III, you can get a lot cheaper than a GX9. Has phase detect, has live comp, live bulb, high-res shot mode, in-camera focus stacking with the compatible lens, and all the art filters and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I like the EM5 Mark III better than the GX9. You really want a rangefinder style camera. OM Systems or Olympus does not have anything like the GX9. The GX9 is going to be the best Micro Four Thirds rangefinder style camera aside from, say, the Pen F, right? The GX9, I would argue the GX9 is probably still better than even the new EP7, which would cost about the same as this. But if you're getting, I don't know what kind of deal you're getting on a GX9, but I guarantee the EM5 Mark III, even if it's the same price, but most likely the EM5 Mark III is even cheaper than the GX9, a far superior camera. Pro Capture, I didn't even mention that. Pro Capture, I just wouldn't bother with the GX9 when the EM5 Mark III is out. And was thinking of pairing it with the 35 to 100 2.8 as I don't love primes generally. Yeah, I would still go with the EM5 Mark III over that. Yeah, it does have the tilt EVF, but I can't think of too many applications that I would use something like that. I mean, sure, it's novel. It's very novel idea. But I would just rather use the excuse me, the flip out screen than tilt the EVF up. I mean, I don't get this. I get it. Okay, I get it. You want to be if you're doing street photography, that might be more discreet. But I've given up on being discreet. If you're going to go out and do street photography and you want to get good photos, you have to own it. You have to go out there and just be a street photographer and talk to people, ask to take their picture, you know. Uh, don't be discreet. I think you'll get much better photos that way. But I'm not qualified to say that because I'm not a street photographer. But from the videos that I've seen of street photographers, the ones that get the best images that I thought were really good is they own the fact that they are a street photographer and they go out there, camera full on display, and they talk to people, they get to know them, they have a conversation, they take their picture, etc. I know this is probably not even related to your question about a GX9, but uh, relative to that pop-up EVF, I don't think you can really be discreet anymore if you have a camera, because cameras are not ubiquitous anymore. Phones are. If you have a phone, nobody's going to give you two looks. But if you have a camera of any kind on you, they're going to see it. Even at like a GR3, it's more discreet and it looks like a phone. Maybe that's its uh secret, right? Is that it looks like a phone kind of. But yeah, just own it. Yeah, EM5 Mark III, definitely. If you can get an OM5, even better. It's a little better camera than the EM5 Mark III. And street with flip all day long. I bought X2T and XT2 and XT5 specifically for this. I thought the XT5 was articulating. I can't. But yeah, the tilt up is good, but I enjoy the fully articulating now the most, more than a tilt. I'm fine either way. It doesn't bother me either way. But I find that uh, even for photography, I do a lot of self-portraits. So for me, having the fully articulating screen is preferred, right? Because I can compose my self-portrait or selfie with that screen. Because you guys have seen my stuff, right? I go out in the street, I set up a flash, I set up the camera on a self-timer or a custom timer, and I do these selfies in the street. Uh, you know, I'll just show you one or two in case you have no idea what I'm talking about. I have this album here. I use the flip out screen a lot, right? Like this one and this one. Things like this, right? This was the Pen F with the kit lens. Uh, you know, you want that perfect shot, you just make it, right? Things like this. This was one big outing. This was another one. I like this picture. I got one like on this. Oh, Eric. What was this with? This was with my Pen F with the 25 1.4. Just love how this lens renders. So yeah, this is my favorite picture of all time. I know I'm so narcissistic, taking selfies, but when I want to take a picture in the street, you can't always just, I just this is my Columbo series. um, I'm trying to be Columbo. This is my travel series. Um, I have another one. Yeah, this is my black and white gritty series. Just experimenting with different things. I love this picture. This one's all right. This is okay. A lot of people like this one. Not on Flickr. I got 0. But I like this one. Mostly because I got the plane in the shot here. That's just lucky, right? And there's my Pen F down here. What did I use to shoot this? My Sony? Oh, this one I was testing my Sony out. Yep. Anyhow, articulating screen for me, right? Not flip. So the XT4 is articulating, but the XT5 they changed. I'm not sure. I kind of want an XT50, but I gotta stop. I gotta at least get a couple thousand clicks on the cameras I just bought before I buy another one. These are remote triggers. When I'm in the studio, I use a remote trigger. When I'm out in the field, I use the custom self timer and turn on the autofocus so it'll automatically refocus. Hopefully on my face if I got face detect on. If I'm struggling a little bit, sometimes in direct sunlight, the autofocus struggles a little. I will pre-focus and then sit down in that spot and make sure my depth of field is deep enough, right, that it doesn't matter. But 9 times out of 10, I'll use the custom self timer with autofocus turned on so that for every shot, and then I'll set it to take 3 shots, maybe 10. But typically I'll set it to take 3 shots and you know, I'll just tilt my head or smile or whatever. So outdoors, I don't use the remote shutter much. But in the studio, I do because in the studio, it's much faster. And the studio shots are mainly for testing different lighting, uh, different types of lighting. So I don't care if the remote trigger is in the shot. You can see it in my hand when I'm doing stuff at home, like in my studio. But when I'm out in the field, outdoors, it's hard to hide the remote trigger, right? I'd rather I would set it to 10 shots for custom self timer, and then I would just start walking towards the camera, and the camera automatically refocus as I'm walking towards it. And then I'll have 10 shots to choose from, and I can pick that perfect one where my foot is in the right place or whatever. I have been waiting for the Pen F forever. Oh, 1,300 pounds. No, you don't have to move fast. You can set the self timer like for 10 seconds, the custom self timer for 10 seconds, and then have it take a shot every second, every 3 seconds, every 5 seconds, whatever. You can have these intervals. So look at the custom self timer feature in the camera, you know, in the shutter modes, and set it up and practice a little bit. You'll see it's very, very useful. How much is the OM3 in the UK? I have no idea. I can look it up. So 16,666. Not a happy number. Why couldn't it be like 665? Does it have to be 666? Anyway, that's what it is. Okay. And 2000 with lens, I didn't see what it, yeah, 2000 with lens. If it comes with the 12 to 45, I wish I had done that. I wish I bought my own 3 with the kit lens. My rationale of not getting it at the time, I'm talking about last week, right, was I have the 14 to 42 kit lens. Close enough for me. And then it hit me, I use filters a lot, and it's the filter options for a 14 to 42 kit lens are pretty limited. So, as I buy filters for my other lenses, like my 12 to 40 Pro, 2.8, I have that and I have a kit lens, and I'm like, what do I need a 12 to 45? But I don't like to use the 12 to 40 Pro on the OM3 that much because it's kind of a big lens for that camera. But the 12 to 45 is just right. And I can use filters on it. Standard 58 millimeter thread. I got a lot of filters I could use on that. So yeah, that was a mistake. I wish I had got the kit lens. Robin's been doing small clips for Olympus camera tips. Oh, yeah. I've seen, yeah, I've run across a couple of those thumbnails. I'm not good at that stuff. I like doing live streams. I'm terrible at making videos. I used to do them all the time, but they were so hard. I mean, anyway, I need to get back into it though. The 12 to 100 f4, I know that's a good lens, but I just can't. I wouldn't want to take that all the time. I'm just happy with a kit lens most of the time. Or the 12 to 45 would have been perfect. But if I'm going to use filters, I'm just going to have to bring my 12 to 40 Pro. And I have to be very deliberate about what lenses I take with me if I'm going to use filters. Whereas if I got the 12 to 45, that would just be glued to the camera. I wouldn't have to think about it. I'd just bring the filters with me all the time. And see if you can convince OM System to change the levels to bars on the OM1 instead of round ones. Oh, I seriously doubt it. They don't listen to me. If I identify a problem, like a bug, they might take note. But if I'm telling them how to design their cameras or their interface, my word is nothing, you know? Um, but yeah, the level meters, the way they are right in the center of the frame. So I turn them on and off when I need them, but I need them almost all the time, right? With architectural. Yeah, they're not going to listen to me. Ah, you think I have a lot of pull? I seriously doubt it. When I first got my EM10 Mark II, I watched all Ra's videos back in the day. Now I have the EM1X, the EM1 Mark III, EM10 Mark II, GH5 Mark II, and G9 and EPL9. I love them all. You and I are of the same kindred, man. I just bought every Olympus camera, but I did skip a couple of generations, like EM5 Mark III. I'm going to skip the OM5 and wait for the OM5 Mark II. EM1 Mark III, I went to OM1, but I'm going to skip the Mark II and wait for the OM1 Mark III. I probably got a couple of years to go on that. And OM3 might come out with the OM3 Mark II. I'll probably skip that and get the Mark III. OM3 Mark III, years from now. But there's going to be so many other cameras released from other companies. There's rumor of an LX100 Mark III coming out. That could be interesting. I don't know if I would get it, but that could be interesting. Uh, what else am I looking forward to? I thought the S1R Mark II would be very tempting, but it's not. It doesn't offer anything that I would use 47 megapixels for, because full frame camera is going to have huge lenses. I'm not going to use it for wildlife. 600 f4. Yeah, that ain't happening. And that's what you would need. That's what I would want to have. That ain't happening. I don't think they even have an L mount 600 f4. I think Sigma has a 500 f5.6. But anyhow, uh, I'm not doing that. I would use it to take pictures of Ellie, to do architectural, to do still life, all the things that you really don't need super fast autofocus or super fast continuous frames per second. I would just use it for the 47 megapixel sensor and the beautiful image rendering that the S1R Mark I has. I think the S1R Mark I is really an amazing camera. If I can get it for $1,000 or less, I'm going to get another one. I missed the one that I had. And the L-mount glass is second to none, in my opinion, as far as full-frame cameras go. Because Micro Four Thirds glass is amazing. The full-frame camera world, L-mount glass, second to none. All day long, dollar for dollar, L-mount glass is the best out there. Just my opinion. Yeah, I heard about the Canon rumor, the retro. It'll be interesting, but if it's like the Nikon ZF, might be a little too big and heavy, ultimately. That's why, the OM3 was like a no-brainer for me. I got the retro camera for a small body. Given the weight and size advantage of OM-MFT, why don't sports photographers use OM-MFT? I don't know. I don't think they care about size and weight, you know? If you're talking about professional sports photographers, they need like the ultimate best low light performance and they need to deliver it instantly. They cannot take it home and post-process in DxO, right? That's why some of the pro cameras have like even Ethernet ports in them so that they're connected directly to their client or publisher so that as soon as they take the picture, it gets delivered and they publish it right away. So it's really important that they have straight out of camera ready to go. And a full frame camera, that's why like these pro cameras have like 20 megapixel full frame sensors, right? Because they want the ultimate high ISO performance. So I think that's why, if you're talking about professional sports photographers, timing and high ISO performance are critical for them. And yeah, the weight is sitting on monopods, so weight isn't a problem for them in sports guys. So that, that's true also, right? But I think it's primarily because of the delivery, uh, delivering a very clean, high ISO image. Because a lot of sports stuff is in stadiums and the light's not great, etc. Okay, I think I'll call it here because my batteries are running low. But this has been a great stream. A lot of great questions. You guys have been great. Always a lot of fun to talk to. Uh, thank God daylight savings has started, so we can all go out and stay out later. Well, at least for me, right? The sun is going to stay out later. I hope they lock it in place to this time slot. I hate daylight savings, changing the clock twice a year. I mean, the sun rises and falls at a different time every day because I'm kind of northern hemisphere. So whenever you're kind of near one of the poles, your sunlight changes throughout the year, sunrise, sunset. That is a problem in of itself. Never mind changing the clock twice a year. How's anybody supposed to? I don't care which one they pick. I prefer the daylight savings ones that we have in the summer, but pick one or cut it in half, go in the middle, pick one and stick to it. Stop changing the clock twice a year. That's my message to everyone that has any say in daylight savings time. My vote is just pick one and stick to it. Okay. You guys have a great weekend, what's left of it. I'll be back probably on Tuesday for a shopping stream. We'll see. Uh, and I'm gonna go lay down. I'm really tired. I've been out since 4 a.m. this morning. I've been up since 4 a.m. and I haven't taken a break yet. Uh, Getting hungry, actually. Man, thanks again for watching. If you can, support the channel. Become a member, buy me a coffee, hit the like button, subscribe. Anything is greatly appreciated. Thanks again. You guys have a great week.